Have you ever looked at someone else's life and thought, what the hell are they doing that I'm not? They're happier, more confident, more successful, and it's tempting to believe they had some massive breakthrough moment, right? Like some movie scene where everything changed. But let me tell you the truth, it wasn't some grand cinematic moment. It was something way less sexy. It was a 5-minute decision. It was getting up when they didn't feel like it. It was saying no to one more scroll and yes to one more rep. It was texting that person back with clarity, not confusion. It was choosing to be honest instead of hiding behind "I'm fine." We want transformation to look like fire and lightning. But real change looks like brushing your teeth when no one's watching. It's boring, it's quiet, but it's where everything starts. Small changes don't look impressive until they compound, until one healthy meal turns into a lifestyle, until one honest conversation shifts an entire relationship, until one act of courage unlocks a version of you didn't know existed. You don't need to change your whole life. You need to change your next decision. That's it. That's the game. Because your next decision is the only one that exists right now. Think about this. What's something you keep putting off because you think it has to be perfect? Maybe it's starting that business, having that conversation, going to the gym, writing the book, being vulnerable. You're waiting for this perfect version of you to show up and take the reins. But that version of you, they only show up after you start making small moves. You want more confidence? Start keeping promises to yourself. You want deeper connections? Start listening 10% more. You want to be irreplaceable at work? Start doing 1% more than what's expected. You want love? Stop ghosting your own heart. Don't underestimate the power of one message sent, one decision owned, one moment where you show up instead of checking out. That's how you build a different life. Not overnight, not on January 1st, not when the timing is perfect, but now, today, with what you've got. And here's the best part. You don't have to be extraordinary to start, but if you start, you'll become extraordinary without even realizing it. Small changes, massive impact. That's not a quote, that's a promise. Not just in dating, not just at work, but in life. The way they walked, the way they second-guessed their own words mid-sentence. Even the way they apologized for existing when they entered a room. And they said, if I just had one big win, something huge, maybe then I'd finally feel confident. That's the story we've been sold, right? That confidence is something that happens to you once you achieve something extraordinary. Once you land the job, once the right person picks you, once you hit 100,000 followers, or finally fit into that outfit, or earn the applause, the money, the title. And because we keep waiting for that moment, we don't notice what's actually building or destroying our confidence every single day. Confidence isn't found in big wins. It's built in tiny decisions you don't think matter. That moment you decide to sit up straight even though no one's watching. That moment you send the email you've been dreading, even though your hands are shaking. That moment you look someone in the eye instead of looking at the ground. You think those moments are small. They're everything. I'll give you a story. There was a guy I once met at a seminar. Quiet, stayed in the back, avoided eye contact. He'd built this belief that he was awkward. Not introverted, no, he labeled himself awkward, as if it were a permanent trait. But then one day he did something tiny. He walked into a coffee shop and forced himself to say, "Hi, how's your day going?" to the barista. That's it. Not a TED talk, not a flirt, just a human moment. And he told me afterwards that one thing made me feel like maybe I'm not completely broken. So he did it again the next day. Then he held someone's gaze for 2 more seconds. Then he stood a little taller. Then he went to a networking event and introduced himself first. By the time I saw him again, he didn't seem awkward at all. he seemed confident. Not because he had won some prize, not because a magical fairy visited him and sprinkled you are enough dust. He simply made enough tiny decisions to stop proving to himself that he was awkward and started proving to himself that he could trust himself. That's what confidence is, self-trust. And self-trust is built the same way you build trust with anyone else. Through consistency, through action, through tiny moments that say, I've got me. But you know what most people do instead? They betray themselves in small ways. They say they'll go to the gym and don't. They say they'll stop texting their ex and do it anyway. They say they'll start the project and push it another way. And these are not failures. But every time you choose comfort over commitment, you send a message to your brain, I don't follow through. And if you don't trust yourself, why would you ever feel confident? People think they need more willpower, but what they really need is evidence. Evidence that they are the kind of person who does what they say they're going to do. Evidence that they can survive discomfort. Evidence that they are in control, not their fear, not their anxiety, not their laziness. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. You're making those choices every day. When you snooze the alarm, tiny moment, when you walk past the mirror and choose to say one kind thing instead of tearing yourself apart. Tiny moment, when you speak up in a meeting instead of shrinking down. Tiny moment. These are not just moments. They are votes for the person you're becoming. You think confidence is a personality trait. It's not. It's the quiet echo of 1,000 small decisions you made when no one was clapping for you. It's built when you go for a run when no one's watching. It's built when you decide not to gossip because you want to live with integrity. It's built when you speak your truth, even though your voice trembles. You don't need a massive breakthrough. You don't need a 6-figure win or a viral moment. You need to start stacking small wins that prove to your own nervous system, I'm capable, I'm consistent, I've got this. There's a version of you out there who walks into rooms like they belong, who doesn't wait for someone to approve of their ideas, who isn't performing confidence. They are confidence. And the only reason they exist is because you built them, one decision at a time. So don't wait. Stop putting your transformation in the hands of some distant, perfect future. You don't need more time. You need 5 seconds of courage right now. Because 5 seconds is all it takes to cast a vote. And every vote matters. Every single one. Confidence isn't an explosion. It's a quiet revolution happening inside you. And it starts with a decision you almost ignored. But for years at full had that moment. You wake up one day, look at your life, and feel like you're way off track. Maybe you're exhausted, unfulfilled, stuck. You think, I need a reset, a full-blown transformation. I need to change my job, my body, my relationships, my whole damn life. And so you make a plan, a dramatic one. You're gonna wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, journal, hit the gym, drink a gallon of water, cut out sugar, make 6 figures, heal your childhood wounds, find your soulmate, and still be in bed by 9. But here's what happens. 3 days in, you're burnt out. You miss one morning workout, and suddenly you feel like you've already failed. The perfection you were chasing slips through your fingers, and you tell yourself what you've always told yourself. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Let me say something you need to hear. You don't need a life overhaul. You need a habit that sticks long enough to change who you are. You're not broken. You're just tired of carrying the weight of unrealistic expectations. You've been taught that change has to be loud and dramatic to be real. That you have to wake up one morning and be someone completely different. But change doesn't work like that. Change is sneaky, subtle, quiet. It sneaks in through the back door and settles in your identity. You start showing up 5 minutes early instead of 10 minutes late. You start drinking water first thing in the morning instead of grabbing your phone. You start walking for 10 minutes a day, not because it'll transform your body overnight, but because you're becoming someone who moves. The magic isn't in doing everything. It's in doing something consistently. I once knew this guy, let's call him Ryan, total mess when I met him, partying every night, self-loathing through the roof, completely detached from any version of his potential. He thought he had to flip his entire life upside down to become someone better. You know what actually changed his life? A walk. Every day. One walk. No headphones. No phone. Just a walk. Rain or shine. He did it for 30 days. And in those 30 days, he didn't become a new man, but he started to remember that there was more to him than chaos. The walk gave him clarity. Then came a better sleep routine. Then came the idea to switch up his job. Then came therapy. But none of that started with a breakthrough. It started with one habit that stuck. That's how it works. You start with something small, stupidly small, so small it feels like it's not even worth doing. And you keep doing it, not to check a box, not to get a reward, but because it starts to feel like part of who you are. That's the shift no one talks about. When something goes from being something you do to someone you are, you don't meditate, you are calm. You don't read books, you are curious. You don't eat healthy, you are someone who takes care of themselves. You don't need to become a robot or a monk or a motivational quote. You just need to become someone who trusts themselves enough to stick to one thing long enough to see what happens. And yeah, it's boring sometimes. It's not always exciting, but that's the beauty of it. If you can keep doing something even when it stops being sexy, that's when it starts being real. The world loves a before and after story. We worship the big reveal, the weight loss, the success, the glow up. But the truth is, no one claps for you when you show up on day 6, and no one notices. No one claps when you choose the apple instead of the donut. No one claps when you write one paragraph of your book. But that's where your life is actually changing. That's where the identity shift begins. That's where the new version of you is being built, in silence. So stop trying to change everything. Stop making a plan that requires you to become perfect by Monday. Start smaller, smaller than that. Pick one habit, one thing, one promise to yourself, and stick to it, even when you don't feel like it, even when no one's watching, even when there's no immediate reward, because eventually there will be. The reward isn't a six-pack or a standing ovation. The reward is waking up one day, looking in the mirror and realizing you're not faking it anymore. You're not trying to become something. You are something. All because of one habit that stuck long enough to change who you are. Every single person you admire, their life didn't change overnight. They didn't wake up magically disciplined. They weren't handed confidence. They weren't born with it. They built it. Brick by brick, habit by habit, moment by moment. They didn't wait for motivation. They built systems that worked even when they didn't feel like it. Because let's be honest, you're not always going to feel like it. You're not always going to be inspired. There will be days when you feel tired, when doubt creeps in, when your old self begs you to give up. But those are the days that separate the dreamers from the doers. It's not about the days when everything clicks. It's about the days you show up anyway. Small, steady, silent, relentless. And if you're thinking, but what if I fail again? Good. That means you're in the arena. That means you're trying. You don't get strong by avoiding resistance. You get strong by meeting it again and again until one day it bows to you. Steve Jobs said the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. But you don't need to change the entire world. You need to change your world. That's where it begins. And your world doesn't shift in earthquakes. It shifts in the 5-second decision to speak your truth, in the 20 minutes you give to a routine that feeds your mind, in the single step forward when fear says stay stuck. You think you need permission. You don't. You don't need to be ready. You need to begin, because the people living the life you want, they weren't ready either. They just stopped stalling. They stopped negotiating with their future. Will Smith said the first step before anyone else in the world believes it is you have to believe it. And belief isn't passive. Belief is built every time you show up when it's easier to quit. Belief is built when you choose growth over comfort. Belief is built when your actions speak louder than your excuses. So I'll tell you what no one else will. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming powerful. And your power lives in the choices you think don't matter. When you shift from I need to overhaul everything to I just need one habit that sticks, you shift from chaos to control. You shift from overwhelm to ownership. You shift from being a passive character in your story to the writer of it. And if you ever forget what you're capable of, remember this. Tony Robbins said it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Nelson Mandela said it always seems impossible until it is done. Muhammad Ali said, I hated every minute of training, but I said don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. This is your training. This is your decision. This is your impossible that's about to get done. Don't look for the finish line. Fall in love with the becoming. Because one day, not far from now, you'll look back at this version of you, the one who was tired, scared, unsure, and you'll thank them, not for being perfect, not for getting it all right, but for taking the first small step when everything in them said you're not ready. They did it anyway. And so will you.